Hello, and welcome to a Wet Global podcast. We're so happy to have you with us today. A little bit about Wet Global. It's also known as Women in Ethics and Compliance Global. We're a 501c3 non-profitable charitable organization that is committed to supporting the mental health of women as they learn from shared experiences in the compliance, risk, ethics, audits, and governance roles. We inspire the workforce development for future leaders within the ethics and compliance industry. We have a guest with us today that is phenomenal. Her name is Dr. Fanike Carrera Olagbala Young, and she is an integrative wellness program designer and business profit growth strategist. She uses her expertise from behavioral health, clinical educational training as a doctor of behavioral health, program consultant, licensed trauma therapist, and master Reiki practitioner to design and implement wellness systems for corporations, businesses, and organizations. We're so happy to have her. Her approach is unique in that she assesses the needs of the organization or company and the individuals to customize a wellness program that would be suitable for leadership and employees. Her programs are based on the needs of the people and not the assumptions of leadership. Our title with her today is The Ethics of Wellness. Because guess what, guys? Caring for yourself is the highest form of ethics. Let's turn our attention now and see how Dr. Fanike is. How are you today?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to discussing how wellness impacts, especially ethics and compliance professionals, because most of you work so much. And, there's rarely, I think, the belief or the space to cut it off. So I'm excited to dig into this topic.
Absolutely. So am I. And that's why I was so excited to have your thoughts on this particular subject. Because for a compliance officer or for special counsel or someone working as a fraud analyst or an investigator, the issues are real and we bring that home. It becomes a real struggle for us. A lot of times we are seeing some things and hearing some things. I think I was recently talking to a friend of mine, and one of the things that she was saying was just that she was inundated by even media coming to her for answers of some wrongdoing case or allegations of wrongdoing for a particular company that she was working with, and they, as a special counsel, and they came to her for answers, and they came with her for answers to questions. She was on her home territory, so she felt like this is not even a safe space here anymore. So yeah, the idea of being in this particular field, being in compliance and ethics, a lot of times people are felt to be alone or to feel, what do I do with that extra stress that I've brought home? How do I not deplete myself? How do I find some type of a work-life balance, but not just bring everything home and wear it on my shoulders? So I'm so happy to have your insight on that. Thank you.
Yes, no problem. I remember when I was early on, because my background is I'm a licensed therapist
Mm,
that focuses on trauma, and I'm a doctor of behavioral health. And I remember, like in my early therapy days, I did a lot of community behavioral health work. And so what that involved was going into homes, going into schools, going wherever the client was, to meet with them, to provide therapy, to work with the families. And I think in the beginning, it was really difficult for me to separate the two, right? So once I left the client and then would go home, it was kind of like, well, I just left this person. They have all these things going on. They may be homeless tomorrow. It's possible that they are not eating tonight, and I would just kind of carry all of that with me. And one of the things that
mm,
I really that I started doing was realizing that mentally I had to separate the two. I had to cut it off, and it was more so mental.
mm,
And so what I would do is when I would get home, I would have a change of clothes at the door, and I would change my clothes. So I would immediately take those clothes off, whatever I had on, outside and in the field, and I would, change my clothes. And for me, it was like, okay, I'm stepping out of this suit. I'm stepping out of their professional role. I'm leaving that, at the door. So when I'm coming to
Mm,
the house, it's like, okay, now I am home. So it was literally me creating a ritual
mm-hmm.
for myself to be able to, discern between the two environments.
Mm,
And so that's one thing that I always like recommend to people is, and I think it was a little easier before everyone was working, remotely.
yes.
And, prior to then it was like, okay, I go into the office. And then when I leave the office, I've left the office for some of us.
Yeah.
So one of the things now I think with working remotely is making sure that you still have, off work hours. And so,
Mm-hmm.
for me, and I totally get it, I work for myself. And so sometimes, 7 p.m., 8 p.m. at night, I'm trying to finish up something, I'm trying to submit something to somebody, or I'm checking emails, so I totally understand. I'm also a mom, so the day just never goes the way that I want it to go, per se. So,
Yeah.
think for me, I have like cutoff hours.
Mm-hmm.
So, after 8 p.m., I cannot do work. Like it's like
Right.
you have to cut this off. I also limit the amount of ways that people can contact me, which is a whole nother thing. So
Oh,
some of us were
okay.
on yeah, some of us were on Slack, we're on Asana.
Yeah.
People have access to us through text, they have access to it through emails. And I think that it's important for everyone to choose one or two ways that they will communicate. And then that way you can cut that piece off when you reach that time.
I love that. So let's break down because you mentioned three really good things that I think are so great. So let's just roll back for a second. The first one that you really said was our attire. And that's so important because, again, like you said, when you go into an office, so you might kick it up a little bit, even have those heels on. But when you work from home all day, you might not have on heels. You might not just have on your top. Part of your
Yeah.
body is professional looking. So there's no clear cut and restart. So that's tip one. Really good. Change your clothes. Even if you've had on casual bottoms or casual shoes, still that mental change can help you to stop and to separate. So I love that. That was one. Then the second one was you said about how I think it was having office hours, which again is so important. I think as women, we are the caretakers of the home. We are multitasking. We're doing a load of laundry. We're starting dinner, picking up the kids from school. There's so much on our shoulders that sometimes we do in multitasking keep that work circle also going. What can we do better? How can we change this? How can we facilitate something else? So I think that's a number two that we need to kind of put a check next to. Am I stopping mentally? Office hours. How can I stop thinking on that case? Do I need to tell myself, hey, that's enough for today? Deal with
Mhm.
this tomorrow, and maybe that's an answer. And then the third point that I just got from you just now was in harmony, and it was like slow down on your areas of ways for people to communicate with you. And that during the day is something that we've all become accustomed to. We have, like you said, whether it be an instant messaging service or our phones, a lot of us are carrying two phones, professional and for ourselves. So we need to draw some limits is what I'm hearing. We need to put up some parameters and guidelines, and that will help ourselves. So
Mhm.
far I got 3 points. I'm here for more. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and you literally like just hit the nail on the head. So what it all comes down to is we lack boundaries. And
Mm,
oftentimes what I find is that, especially when I'm working in the corporate space, there are no guidelines around wellness. And what I mean by that is I'm not talking about benefits, I'm not talking about, perks, I'm not talking about those things, but what I mean is that the overall organizational culture does not include wellness. And so that that does look like us, being overwhelmed. And a lot of that is just because it's not ingrained in our culture. It's not ingrained in the work culture. It's kind of like, a lot of companies still operate from a point of you come to work and you work.
Mm-hmm.
And we just can't sustain on that model anymore. It's just not reality, right? And so we have to start to incorporate wellness pieces into our days. We have to, start practicing mindfulness. Leadership or execs have to start saying, hey, it's okay for you to take this time if you need some mental health time. It's okay for you to take a break. It's okay if you can't finish this project today. Let's push it out another day so that you can take, a couple hours for yourself if you're overwhelmed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we
Mm-hmm.
have to kind of get into that space of really valuing one another, but I think also valuing ourselves. And so in
Mm-hmm.
valuing ourselves, it is saying, hey, I have boundaries
Mm-hmm.
and I have to enforce those boundaries, and I need you to respect my boundaries. And one of my boundaries is, I cannot work more than 7 hours a day or 8 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
at full capacity, because the reality of the situation is a lot of us, are not able to operate at that level for that long period of time anyway, at an optimal level, right?
Right.
So about
Right.
maybe half of that is actually us producing something that is, top notch, right? The
Mm-hmm.
other time
Mm-hmm.
is us, thinking about it, or, you
Yeah.
know, I need a break, and
Right.
so
We're
this
struggling.
exactly. And so it's like we're pushing or trying to push ourselves through to accomplish these things, but we're not really giving our best anyway. And
Right.
so it's time for companies to start really, changing the policies, the procedures, the culture, and
Mm-hmm.
letting people know and normalizing that it is okay for them to take care of themselves, and it's okay for us to take care of each other, right? It's
Yes.
okay.
And that's so important. So, what I'm hearing you say is great because it's a twofold benefit, not only for ourselves, whether we're in that role of special counsel or investigator or whatever, compliance officer. If we have a team that we're leading, we also have to take time for that team, give
Yep.
them a moment. So, I'm loving the idea of implementing that because our team will usually do what they see us do. If we have a set of workers or performers, they usually go by what they're seeing the lead do, right? So if they're seeing us take a time out for a mental reprieve, taking the time out to just get it together, that will encourage them. And like you said, then you can get a better outcome overall versus seeing the struggle, seeing the what some would consider a lack of time being spent well, because they're trying to process so much when they really just need that emotional, mental pause, and then they can come back stronger than before. So I'm hearing a benefit on both sides. I'm hearing it for the person who is the worker, as well as if you have a team to set that right example and to take those pauses so that they can see you take that pause, they can take a pause, and then you're okay with that. So that is, like you mentioned, that's a whole different mindset from years ago, because I think the mentality years ago was 9 to 5, just work, 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 work or
Yep.
be. Some
Yep.
would stop for maybe a 20-minute lunch break and get right back into work or work through their lunch. I remember on one of my very first jobs, that was customary. You would have bring your sandwich. You wouldn't even go outside and see fresh air. You would bring your sandwich, take a bite or two, get some water or whatever you brought, and keep on working. So, the idea of mental refresh didn't exist. But, just like I like to think, a lot of things have to evolve. We are humans that need to consistently grow. So something like that, like your mind energy, your mental energies, they need time to refresh too. So thank you for bringing those out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's insane because, the whole 9 to 5 culture was created by Henry Ford,
Mm.
who ran an assembly line, right? And so we're like working hours for an assembly line,
Right.
literally. You know, and, so when you start to really like look at it like that, it's like,
Yeah.
wow, the reality of the situation is a lot of the work that we do, is mental. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not physical labor. So when you have someone on assembly line hours doing mental work, right? That's a lot.
Right.
It's draining.
Right.
And I learned a while back that, as women, it takes us approximately 1 month out of the year to just plan meals for ourselves and our families.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
that's a lot of
That's a
time.
lot of time. Right.
Yes. So on
Wow.
average, they're like, it's like 2 hours a day or something,
Right.
where we're thinking about what to feed people, right? And what to
Mm.
feed ourselves. And so,
Mm-hmm.
just I always think about, the stuff that no one, I think, oftentimes takes into consideration, that dad's needs are different from a mom's needs.
Very
Um,
true. Mm-hmm.
yeah, a single person's needs are very different from a married person's
Mm-hmm.
need, right? A
Mm-hmm.
person in a relationship. We don't take those pieces into consideration. I mentally may not have as much as someone else who doesn't have, multiple children to
Mm-hmm.
manage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I'm managing them, I'm managing myself,
Right.
I'm managing my husband, I'm managing the house. It's a lot of different pieces, and
Mm.
then managing the business, and so we have to really start to look beyond just, one size fits all. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
just needs this one thing. And so for me, it's definitely a priority, especially when I'm designing, wellness programs, or, doing workshop facilitation with these companies, because it's about, well, who is my audience? And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what will help you? What would really benefit you, right? For me to come in and work with you on what kind of, coaching do you need? Because that's a component that I think we miss as well. Only
Mm-hmm.
6% of employees on average utilize their employee assistance program. Yet everyone has one,
That's true. That's
but
true.
no
Mm-hmm.
one really uses it.
No.
E exactly, and the thing is that it's not even a proactive tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very reactive tool, and I think when it comes to wellness and taking care of our people and valuing our employees, it has become very reactive instead of proactive. And so my thing
Right.
is, if you want your people to, be productive, if you want them to be able to do the work that you need them to do, if you want your company to grow and continue to expand and meet that bottom line, you have to make sure that you are taking care of them.
Mm-hmm.
You
Now,
have to
here's
make
a question. What
Yeah.
you mentioned some points that made me think for a moment. I think a lot of times, because you are 100% correct, there's wellness programs in so many companies, and you don't hear people taking advantage of them. I think, especially for women, a lot of times we think that may make us appear weak,
Mhm,
that
mhm.
we're reaching out for an outside service to help us cope with something.
Mhm.
What do you say to that thought? How do we get
Yeah.
over stopping ourselves for asking for help, for looking for help, or what is your advice on that? What do you think?
Yeah, I can totally see that. So the thing is that, one of like I designed a program where a part of it was having the coaching, like group sessions
Mm-hmm.
in the actual workplace. And so it was
Oh.
like during those workplace hours, once a week, there are sessions, and these sessions are designed to help, with coping
Mm-hmm.
around topics that are selected by the employees. So it's, surveying them or assessing, their needs, and then making sure that the program topics are, fit whatever it is that they needed to be discussed. So that's, I think, one way to kind of remove the taboo is to
Mm-hmm.
bring the services into the actual workplace and say, hey, this is for everyone. So then it's not just like, oh,
Right.
okay, it's me, I'm having to reach out. So that's one piece. The other piece is that one way to do it is to not tie all of the services back to the employer. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is that Mother honestly just developed a workplace wallet. And
Okay.
in that workplace wallet, employers put like a certain amount of money in the wallet. And to the data doesn't come back to the employers. And what I mean by that is this person went to therapy yesterday and this person went to, went to the doctor, the day before, whatever the case may be. It's more so that, it's showing what area that they've used it
Mhm.
in, but it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't attach to stigma, right?
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
it helps to
Mhm.
kind of decrease some of the stigma that's attached to it, because your needs for wellness may not be the same as my needs.
Mhm.
So the problem is when we're saying, let's just put this blanket package together and just give it to people, right? What if my needs don't meet like whatever it is that you're giving me? What if
Mhm.
what I need are massages? What if what I need are, facials?
Mm.
What if that's my wellness, right? Can you cover that? That is what
Mhm.
helps me to de-stress and stay on top of things. But that's not covered in my benefits. So in essence, I'm paying for benefits that, one, I'm not really using. But I know for me, I'm gonna go to the doctor, one to two times a year.
Right, right, right,
I don't really get sick like that. So,
right.
you know, but I could be using some of the money that's going into funding these benefits on stuff that I would actually utilize to help me actually be more productive and well rested and do my job better.
Mhm. Mhm. I think that is a good point because just recently, someone was telling me that, I shouldn't say that recently, during COVID, let me be specific. During COVID, there was so much going on personal levels. People were feeling exhausted, mentally exhausted, just needing someone to talk to. But the fear was to have a record made that they went to see someone for a psychiatric or
Yeah.
a mental visit. And
Mhm.
so that really hindered a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I found it for myself just speaking to people about that. Um, I think it's really a danger to not take a moment and realize we were in the midst of a pandemic. That's big. That's huge.
Yeah.
So it's bound to leave some injuries on your psyche, on your emotions, on your mental capacity, and we're doing ourselves a disfavor by not acknowledging that and moving forward. So I'm grateful to hear, like you said, there's ways to support that. This is something that we could share with our employers, or if we happen to be an employee ourselves, maybe have that available for our team. Whereas, like you mentioned, you might not have to divulge where you got your support from, but it's
Yeah.
set aside for you to get support. I
Yes.
think that would be a phenomenal, phenomenal
Yeah.
move for many companies.
Definitely,
Mhm.
definitely. And the other piece is that, we just talked about this 9 to 5 hours. Well, that's the majority of the day,
Right.
and so if I'm spending most of my time at work, right, let's incorporate some of these wellness pieces into work. Let's bring the pieces in there so that people can have access. And it doesn't take a lot, right?
Mhm.
Let's change the way in which we run meetings. Let's incorporate some mindfulness in those meetings. Let's change those procedures, right? Because that's what it
Mhm.
comes down to. And at the end of the day, it's about improving the culture so that it definitely is a culture of wellness, as opposed to just a culture of, hey, you figure it out.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's so important for women to realize it's okay to share those thoughts with one another. You
Yeah,
know,
definitely.
um, I think working in silos has done a little bit of a harm with that because we do work better as the human race, one another together, supporting one another. So
Mhm.
I appreciate when we have times like this where we can come together, think about some issues, think about some solutions, and then start implementing them. That's the best thing that we can do.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a pleasure. I'm just dropping in the chat for those of you who can see how to find Dr. Fanike some more. I mean, like she has extenuating experiences for not only individuals, but as she mentioned, for corporations. She can help your company. Don't be afraid to use the speak out culture. That's one thing that What Global is very big on. We want you to make some changes the right way. So you can find her at www.drfanike.com. I'll spell it www.drfanike.com. You can also find her at LinkedIn under Dr. Fanike in Instagram and Facebook. It's been truly a pleasure to have you today. We welcome you back to Wet Global anytime you want.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for being
having
with
me.
us. Okay. Have a great day, everyone. Catch you next time on the Wet Podcast.